Welcome to the PowettPlay Podcast, where international cricketer Kieran, Powell and marketing genius Shannon join forces, bringing you captivating conversations with the biggest players in cricket and business. Join us as we dive into the lives of current stars in the cricketing world, the legends before them, and those extraordinary icons whose performances changed the game in both cricket and business. Exploring journeys both on and off the pitch, the boardroom, and everything in between. Get ready for an exhilarating blend of cricket, life, and business insights, with two insatiably passionate, infuriatingly no-holds-barred hosts, who, unfortunately for the rest of us, live and breathe this stuff for a living.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 37 of the PowettPlay Podcast. I'm your host Shannon, and as always I'm joined by my co-host Kieran, Powell, and today we've got a very special guest and my cricketing hero, Stuart Law. How are you, Stuart?
Yeah, very well. Thanks for having me, boys. No,
it's a pleasure, mate. It's a proper pleasure to have you on board. In terms of starting, obviously, I just wanted to get, how did you get into cricket, really?
Oh well, cricket. I was born into a cricketing family. I remember, at a very young age, I was born with a cricket bat in my hand. Basically, I had cricket bats, from birthdays, from the age of 1 to as soon as you could walk. Christmas around our place or around the grandparents' place was all about playing cricket in the garden.
Yeah.
And you learned they were probably the toughest games of cricket I ever played in. Everyone wanted to have a piece of everyone, and all in good humour and all in good fun. But you learn a lot about yourself as a character and about your family.
Yeah.
But started very young. Didn't play real competitive cricket till I was about 7 or 8 years old. But then from there just exploded.
So was it club cricket then at 7 and 8, or was it school?
That was school cricket,
Right.
and then it was junior cricket, club cricket, which came in, I think, down to 12s when I started playing club cricket. So towards the back end of primary school in Australia, started playing club cricket. I was always pushed ahead,
Right.
even if I was in year 5. A final year of primary school was year 7. From year 5, I was playing in the grade 7 side, and then went into high school. And high school wasn't really good for me for cricket.
Okay.
That's when club cricket really, started to take over. I had a scholarship, a sports scholarship at one of the high schools in Brisbane.
Right, okay.
Brisbane State High School, which was going to be a cricket scholarship. We didn't do a lot of cricket. And I thought, instead of travelling to the other side of the Brisbane River, I might as well stay close. And I then went to a school that my sister was going to, and it was only half an hour away from home. wasn't too bad. So, and then that's when I started, grade cricket, 15 years old. I made my A-grade debut in a one-day game, playing with the likes of Alan Border, Greg Ritchie, Kepler Vessels at that age. So it was a pretty remarkable journey from a very, very young age.
In terms of those early days, who sort of took you under the wing then?
In those days, no one did, mate.
Right, okay.
They beat you up. Nothing wrong. I remember being a 15-year-old sitting in the corner of the dressing room at the end of the day's play, and as tradition in Australia, the captain or AB was sponsored by Forex at the time, so he'd go to the bar and he'd get a carton of beer and invite the other opposition team in, and we'd sit round and we'd have a beer at 15. I was drinking lemonades and Coca-Colas. And I remember him looking at me and just saying, "You just sit in that corner and listen." And I went, "Yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir." And the way that we learnt how to play the game was in those situations where you heard, bowlers talking to batsmen, why would you try and play this shot? And batsmen talking to bowlers, how are you trying to get me out, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how we learned how to play the game. You remember the fields they set, the method of, the two in-swingers and an out-swinger trying to get you to cover drive one. So you remember all that and you learnt that way. And I think that was very valuable as a young man growing up and wanting to take cricket on as a passion, as my occupation.
So in terms of those early days, What sort of, you've mentioned there about Alan Border, was he really influential in your development in going into playing for Queensland as well then?
Oh, look, I think Alan, it's underestimated what he actually did for us.
Right.
He gave us the hard edge. Queensland never won a Sheffield Shield. It didn't win one for 69 years. And he came up from New South Wales. He saw the light, you always want to live in Sydney when you can live in Brisbane. So yeah, he came up and he just gave us that mental toughness.
Yeah.
And it was delivered in a way that probably nowadays wouldn't be looked upon fondly. But I think the respect that we had for him, because he was the captain of Australia at the time. If he told you to jump, you're asking how high.
Yeah.
So he in a sense probably did take it on him to make us to the cricketers who we are. I had Matthew Hayden playing club cricket with him as well. So he and I had AB at club cricket.
Yeah.
Plus guys like Greg Ritchie as well. So we had those two guys pushing us to be the best we can be, and pushing us might have been, ridiculing, saying why are you doing it this way? Why aren't you doing that? Pull your head in, sit down, shut up, and all the rest of it. But it made us who we were, and it gave us that idea that we don't know everything. We need to sit down and learn, and we can teach. We can also teach the younger players that are coming in under our wings and grab hold of them and make them fly. So it was a very broad spectrum of personalities, but it was the one that stood out as the probably the catalyst to making us as successful as we could be.
You mentioned there, obviously, in terms of how harsh he could have been, but the way he sort of broke things down and criticism at times. But did you always know that he was from the right place, or did you sort of think he might be being a bit too critical?
Oh yeah, you always, as a young bloke, you're always thinking, why are you picking on me? But then you see, and I've learnt over time. I reckon if I had the mindset that I got 20 years ago when I was 16, 17, of the way Alan Border was treating us, or the way we were treated by our peers, they wouldn't be saying if they didn't think you had something in you. So it was a backhanded compliment in a way, looking back at it. Yeah. At the time, some days were horrible. You didn't want to be on the end of a verbal barrage from one of the hardest men on a cricket field. And he was in your dressing room, So it was good. Look, people talk it, people take it differently, people understand it differently. But I only saw it as a way to. He basically told me he didn't think I was good enough, so I had to keep proving to him. I had to keep proving to him that I am good enough, and I'll show you that I'm good enough, and I'll keep. It just drove me to be, who I was.
And when you were batting with him, would he talk you through much in terms of obviously
he was unbelievably generous with his time and his information. And as I say, we didn't do a lot of talking out on the field. In a partnership, you'd talk a bit, but just a general chat. But the real learning took place in the dressing room after the day's play. That's how the older players, really learn about their cricket, and all the knowledge would come in from both sides of the dressing rooms. They'd come into one room, and you just sit there and listen, pick pieces, and then they'd ask you to go and talk to someone about what you did wrong today. And it was a really nice way to learn, and it gave us a camaraderie throughout the whole competition, not just in our team, but also the other teams around the place. I've still got really good mates from interstate, so it taught us a lot about that, and that's how the senior players of those days, AB, Fat Cat, Kepler Vessels, that's what they taught us.
And then, breaking into the Queensland side, how did that come about?
Yeah, it was a bit different to modern day. You had to earn your stripes. I came out of an under-19 team. We were successful. I went from the under-19 team straight into the first intake of the cricket academy in Australia. So we went straight into a 12-month 12-month time in Adelaide, right, where the academy was based. So my journey, I remember playing grade cricket. It might have been the year before we went to the academy, right, and was playing for Colts. So Colts had a team in the competition, and Colts was like the best under-23 players from around the place. So basically our under-19 team with a few older players in there. And we'd play in the A-grade competition. And 2 years in a row, we made the semi-finals of the 2-day competition. And I remember I think it was 500 or 600s in succession. So, and that was around Christmas, just after Christmas, and I got invited down to practice with Queensland. I didn't get selected into the squad. I didn't get selected to play. I got invited down to practice after scoring these runs, and I just think, this day and age, you score 60, and you're almost putting on your Australian cap. And it's cricket. It's a slightly different proposition nowadays, but you had to earn your stripes. People back then they weren't giving it up. And don't forget, most of the guys playing were semi-pros, so they had jobs. We didn't start practice till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so most people could get a day of work in and then come to practice. And even so, they didn't want to give up the opportunity to play, cricket in one of the better competitions in the world. So they had to really earn your stripes and, push someone out. You couldn't just turn up and, score your 60s and look pretty and keep moving forward. You had to really put performances down on the board. And that was it. From there, I went to the academy and I nearly actually made my debut for South Australia. David Hooks was a guy who took me under his wing. He got me to play a couple of trial matches with South Australia, and after the second one, he said, right, Sheffield Shield starts next week. Next Friday, I want you to bat 3 for South Australia. And it floored me. I went, wow, how cool is this? Someone has spoken to me about playing first-class cricket, not from my state, but someone who I hugely respected. David Hooks is, one of my heroes, and God bless him, no longer with us. But he said, I want you to bat 3 for South Australia next week, which I told him, I said, I've got to ring Queensland. He said, you do what you need to do, but I want you to bat 3 for South Australia next week. So I got a phone call and someone said, look, the coach at the time said, oh, look, okay, if that's the case, no problem. And I went, oh, all right, no, okay, fantastic. I got another call from one of the board members a day later saying, you'll be playing for Queensland next week, sir. Got the plane and come back up. So I actually made my debut for Queensland batting at number 3 rather than South Australia on the same day. So interesting.
Definitely. So when did you mentioned there about being semi-pro? When did that sort of turn to, from a professional perspective, like contract-wise and stuff?
Well, I came into the setup, Queensland setup about 88, 89.
Right.
It didn't actually go full professional until early mid-90s.
Right, okay.
So there was still a bit of time. I remember I had to get a job as well. You couldn't just survive cricket. You had to work as well. So it wasn't until, I can't remember the exact time,
right,
Jordan. It was about mid-90s, I reckon, where it actually went properly pro, and, Cricket Australia revealed that they were earning more money than they were leading on. And it came out into the workplace for us, and the rest is history. We came out with pretty good careers out of it.
And is that why you used to come over to the UK then and play in the summer to obviously make financially as well?
Yeah, it wasn't financial for me. I think I was the most overworked, underpaid overseas pro that the UK's ever seen or known. I love playing.
Yeah.
I hated training. So if I came and played in the county system, which is it's a brutal system to play in if you're playing all formats, and back then there were still 4 competitions. There might not have been a T20 comp in '96, but there were still 4 competitions to play in, and I'd rather be playing than running up sandhills and going to the gym.
So in terms
that was the main reason. It was never for me. It's never been about the money.
No,
the money is a byproduct of something that you do okay, and I don't make it about that. I make sure that the cricket side of things is where it really matters, and that's where you can create a bit of your own history and goodness.
So breaking into the Australian one day team, how did that feel for you?
Oh, immensely proud. To represent your country, I think is every kid's dream. I grew up, I said before, Christmas holidays was, over the summer period time and, December, January. And, there was Boxing Day test match and, then followed by one-day cricket in the backyard. You always wanted to play for Australia. And I remember telling a couple of my school teachers, primary school teachers, they said, what are you going to do? Your careers day, what are you going to do with your life? Oh, I'm going to play cricket for Australia. So don't be stupid. You'll never do that. And I had the great pleasure to go back to my primary school to open the newly renovated cricket nets.
Right.
And to her credit, the teacher, Mrs. Donovan, her name was, she came up and stood next to me and she goes, well, you proved me wrong, didn't you? Yeah, I certainly did. So no, it was an emotional time because it's something you've strived for so long. You get up there and you're not actually playing with just a couple of guys who you play cricket with. You're playing with some legends of the game, and you got Mark Waugh, Steve Waugh, you had Mark Taylor, David Boone, who really he looked after me when I first played international cricket. So he's an absolute champion. I still enjoy catching up with him today, and I still had guys like Ian Healy and Craig McDermott who were there as well from a Queensland side. So it felt familiar, but immensely proud. You felt a fish out of water for the first couple of games. You don't know what you're doing, and until you find your feet. I remember, batting 7 in the first game, and then 6. Probably didn't get a hit in the second one. Third one didn't do too much, and then the fourth one about half an hour before the game started. Mark Taylor comes up to me and says, "All right, today I want you to open the batting with Michael Slater. I'm going to bat at number 6." I went, "Okay, no worries." Against Zimbabwe and Hobart, I got 100, 110. And I thought, you beauty, bowled 10 overs, none for 30 or whatever it was. Man of the match. And next game, I'm batting at 7. So thanks very much. And that was a bit of a shock. I didn't know how to really take that. But that was my introduction into international cricket, which was, quite bizarre at times. But, very, very proud to have pulled on the, wasn't the baggy green, but pulled on the Australian colours and walk out and represent your country.
Part of, obviously, from your one-day career, how hard did you find it in terms of you mentioned there about batting opening to then 7, and obviously when I looked, you batted in the middle order. Was it always quite tricky as you never had that set position in that batting order?
Yeah, that did make it hard. And the times where I was set in the order, I probably had my best time, scoring rate. 96 World Cup, I batted at 5. There was a couple of times where they sent, Shane Warne in ahead of me to do some pinch hitting, which I couldn't quite understand. Because I thought I was probably a better prospect to do that than Warney. He can just sit back and worry about taking the wickets.
Yeah.
But I felt more comfortable. I felt like I belonged. And sometimes you're batting at 5 and 6 in that Australian team when you got the likes of Mark Waugh, Steve Waugh above you, Ricky Ponting, Mark Taylor. You're not getting much of a hit if you're having a good day. You come in for the last 5 to 10 overs if you're lucky. But that's where I did feel comfortable, and chopping and changing. I always wanted to bat in the top 3 in white ball cricket.
Right.
I found my place at number 5, which I was quite happy with as well. And the old cliche, I just want to bat anywhere. It doesn't matter where I bat. And I would have liked to have batted 3 or open in the white ball stuff. But there were some pretty good players there, and people keep talking to me about it this day and age. I didn't have to knock out good players. I had to knock out absolute legends.
Great to the game.
Yeah.
And I don't want to dwell out too much, obviously, on the situation with your Test career and stuff. But what I wanted to ask you a little bit really was, me and Kieran have spoke quite a lot on here about communication, in terms of how it took place, and sometimes communication doesn't take place. In terms of your Test career, was you updated in terms of like opportunity? You had that one Test match. You never, would you regularly spoken to about what you needed to do, really?
Well, I wouldn't say regularly, but I got told by Trevor Hones, who was the chairman of selectors at the time. He selected me for that Test match, And he just, it's still ringing in my ears now. He said, make it hard for me to drop you.
Oh.
I went, okay, all right, makes pretty good sense. So I got 54 not out, and Mark Taylor declares on me, bastard. We still won with a day to spare. And, I went off and thinking, I took a couple of catches or a catch and, bowled some overs, meaningless overs, but I didn't do a lot wrong in that test match. And at the end of it, Trevor came to me and he said, just keep scoring runs. That's all you can do. That's all you can do. Boone's retiring at the end of the summer, so there'll be a position there. You'll be first cab off the rank. They're all going well for next season. So when I wasn't first cab off the rank and not even in a squad, I used to pick up the phone. Because Trevor was my first ever first class captain for Queensland. So I knew him well, good friend. He also managed the local Kookaburra branch in Brisbane. So I had a relationship with him, both on and off the field. I kept ringing him, and eventually he cracked. And he goes, "What do you want now?" I went, "Mate, I just need to know, go and score runs." I went, "Trevor, I know that's my job. I'm a batsman. I've got to score runs, and I've got to score runs at the right time to be, selected into the international setup." And I get that. What else? Just go and score runs. And that's all I got. And then you sit there and you go, well, you score runs. You go to England, you score a mountain of runs. There's an Ashes series being selected. We're looking for players with English experience. I'm going to right over here.
Kind of got it, yeah.
Scoring plenty of runs. I remember picking up the phone to Trevor and said, "Mate, look, I've just finished a county season here in Championship cricket. I've got 1,800 runs." He goes, "County cricket doesn't count, mate. No. Doesn't count. No. You got to score runs in Australia. County cricket doesn't count." The next year, Justin Langer had gone. He'd played for Middlesex, I think. He scored 1,300 runs and he got reinstated back into the Test side. And the comment from Trevor Holmes was, "Well, he's had a really good season in county cricket." So I picked the phone up again. I thought county cricket didn't matter. So in the end, and this is where I'm not trying to dwell on this either. I'm not trying to, put something out there that's not. It did affect me mentally.
I was just going to say that it's got.
Yeah. Oh, mate, I reckon I went through hell internally, and as men, we don't often talk as much as we should.
No.
It just built up, and there was a point in time there where I was, I had a problem with alcohol, and I wasn't seeing the right side of professional sport, all because I was angry. And when you're not getting told the exact truth, if someone said, "Mate, your face doesn't fit, we don't like you, you're never going to play again."
Yeah.
I would have been, hurt for a period of time, but I would have been okay. But to be told nothing and still go and do what they keep asking, and then nothing happened. It did take a toll. I fell out with a lot of people because of it, and not because of anything drastic. I just got angry with the world, and I had to deal with it my own way. And my way was to make sure that Queensland was the hardest team to play against.
Yeah.
And I think I achieved that. We won 5 Shields in 10 years. I was captain of those 5, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that Queensland's, and we every time we play a pre-test match at Allan Border Field or the Gabba, we get the call from the chairman of selectors, Trevor Holmes, "Mate, don't give him too much practice. Win the toss, try and bat for 4 days, do this, do that." And I used to say, "No, mate, we're going to beat them." He said, "No, don't give him a chance. Don't give him too many opportunities to get some practice in." I said, "Mate, we're going to beat them."
Mm.
And just go against what he said, because he gave me nothing. So, and the thing is, we'd go out and we'd beat them. I remember we beat Pakistan in 4 days, and he came in, he was ropeable, he grabbed me, took me outside and said, "I told you not to do this." I said, "Trevor, we've just beaten Pakistan. We're piddly little Queensland. We've just beaten Pakistan. How do you think they're going to feel going into the test match against the Australian team next week?" So I didn't win many friends doing things like that, but I wanted to be true to myself as well. And I said to the players, our Queensland boys, "Mate, we're going to win. We're going to just keep winning games of cricket. Winning culture promotes, winning culture. And it's a better place to be in a winning culture than in a losing culture. So
definitely,
we just took it on, mate.
No, I think like you mentioned there, obviously from how it affected you mentally and stuff, and it's in this, like I said, more and more nowadays, people obviously address that a bit more. So I can imagine, obviously, back then it must have been incredibly tough. But do you think that there was any positive to take from that, from a mentality perspective, in terms of making you mentally stronger and the impact it had on Queensland, maybe giving you that mentality of us versus them a little bit, or was there any positive to take from that, if any?
Yeah, there was. I had to turn it around though, because I was spiraling out of control. And I got my wife to thank for that. She beat me up a couple of times and said, "Come on, pull your head in, stupid. What are you doing with yourself?" And
yeah.
A couple of stern words at home, never go astray either. And, I had to snap out of it. But it did give me drive. It gave me that sense, right, I'll never play for Australia again. I remember playing my last game. I was 29, played my last game at the MCG. Michael Bevan had broken, dislocated his thumb in the Sydney game. It was a final of the World Series against England. And we were playing the second game in Melbourne. I was... On the Friday when the game was going on, I was lying on the beach at Mooloolaba and on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, having a great day. And I got a call from Trevor Hones. Can you make it to? How soon can you get to Melbourne? So it takes 2.5 hours, mate. So 2.5 hours, I reckon I could get it done. And he said, right, I need you there. I need you there tomorrow. Michael's broken, dislocated his thumb. He's out for the series. We need you to take his place. So yeah, okay, cool. And on the way down, I'm thinking, this is my last chance. Right. I've got one game. Very rarely can you make an impact in one game, but I said, I'm going to do my best. I'm just going to go out and play the best cricket I can. And I was I was shitting my pants, nervous, right? Sitting in the dungeon at the MCG, looking out through the door, the players, everyone sitting in the dungeon, looking out inside the dressing room, and I get up doing a few stretches and shadow batting, etc. I was excited. I spoke to Bevo. He told me what my plan should be, and we worked on something. Okay, I agree with that. Let's go and execute that. And I'm just sitting there, and then a voice from the playing group just says, "Why wouldn't you want? Wouldn't you love Michael Bevan walking in next?" And I'm sitting there going, "This is my last chance." Mark Orr sat there and went, "Wouldn't you love Michael Bevan going in next?" And I just went, "Oh, man, okay, no problem. I understand." A few of the senior boys got up and went, "Matt, Junior, you can't say that, blah, blah, blah." I laughed and shook it off, and I went out, made 20 not out. We got 260. We bowled England out for 120. We won the final, and that was it. And I just went, you know what? I've had enough. I'll never play for... I went home. I went to the manager. I said, "Look, can you get me on the 6 o'clock flight?" Warnie and Adam Gilchrist, BJ, Brendan Julian walking up to me. "Come on, we're going to celebrate the win." I said, "Boys, you go and enjoy it. I'm on the first flight home. I've got other things to do. So you go and enjoy it. Have a beer for me, and I'll catch up with you in no time." Yeah. And I just went home. I just went, right, okay, that's it. I don't want to play for Australia again if that's the attitude. And made me feel like I was worth nothing. Just one comment, whether it was targeted or not, I don't know. But it just gave me that drive to think, you know what, I'm going to make Queensland as hard as I can. Yes. And from that, the positivity that I took from it, I had to prove everybody wrong again. I had a career of trying to prove people wrong, and I think to finish my Australian career as the most successful domestic captain of the modern era. Yeah. I'm very proud of it. To get a grandstand named after me by Queensland Cricket, I thought was an immense. Definitely, that's a huge token of appreciation, and huge responsibility on me to keep the cricket family happy and moving forward. And that was it. I finished my career in Queensland in 2003, 2004, and faded into the sunset, mate.
Did it help, though, potentially getting that closure, though?
Not really, because you still want I still wanted to be tested at the top level, you know. And you know, in my last game, second last game for Queensland, we played New South Wales. They were at full strength. We had to win the game to get into the Shield final that year. And Michael, I think Bevo wasn't there. He could have been, but Mark and Steve Waugh were there. And at the end of the game, we beat them. We made the final to play Victoria in Melbourne. And both of them, they had a farewell because it was their last game as well. So New South Wales Cricket put on a function at the ground, and we were invited, which I reluctantly turned up to. But both, well, Mark and Steve, but also guys like Mike Whitney, you know, come up to me and said, "Mate, if you were born in another..."
You were saying then, obviously, after that game, there was an after game function that took place.
Yeah, it was. It was just a thank you to Mark and Steve for their contribution to New South Wales cricket. Standing around, just having a beer, and I reluctantly sat in the corner. But out of respect to those two guys, I showed my face. And a couple of them, like Mark and Steve, also, I think it was Mike Whitney who were hosting the afternoon, that they all come up to me and they said, "Look, you were born in another era or in another country, you would have played 150 tests at least." So, that's one thing. You hear that and you go, okay, that's nice to say, but you go, I wish I had played 150 tests or 100 tests. I wish I played 20. At least I would have had an idea if I was good enough or, not good enough. And, having played one and being thrown on the scrap heap wasn't much fun.
I wanted to sort of ask you, in terms of obviously your time in the UK with Essex and obviously, at Lancashire as well. How did you find the difference in playing Shield cricket and then county cricket?
Look, as a young kid, we wanted to. We always wanted to go to play in England. It was like the finishing school, finishing your technique. You learn a bit on how to play in Australia, obviously. But it's a completely way of playing in the UK. So you've got more diverse conditions in a smaller country. You go down south, you got either very flat wickets or wickets that spin. Mid country, they're flat wickets with a bit of pace and bounce, and then you go to the north and it's swing seam friendly. So to learn how to play in all those conditions was something good. And the other thing was Mark Ward put my name up. He and Graham Gooch from Essex were best mates, or good mates. Gooch reached out to AB and said, "Have you got any young kids you want to, consider playing county cricket?" And Alan Border actually put my name forward, and I went, "Wow, okay." And from there, Paul Pritchard, the captain of Essex at the time, reached out and he said, "I remember Alan being AB said, I've put your name forward. Don't you let me down."
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. And when Paul Pritchard said, I want you to come and play for Essex. And he said, okay, we're going to talk terms. How much money you want to get paid? And I just said, "Mate, it doesn't matter about the money. To come and play and represent Essex with the history, you've got to be an absolute honour." And that was the turning point. They had a couple of names on the table, and once I just said that, they said, "Right, he's here to play cricket. He's here to make a difference." And I wasn't going to let Alan Border down, that's for sure.
And then how did that help you out in terms of then going back to Queensland, then in obviously your season in Australia?
Well, it helped me. Playing county cricket taught me how to play spin, and I learned doing that by standing at second slip next to Graham Gooch, who was at first slip, and just asking him questions and where to hit balls, what type of ball to hit where, and he was like Alan Border. He was so generous and great with his time that we had a great conversation most days out in the field. I'm probably the reason why he wanted to retire. So just give him a break with it. But he's a great man, Gooch. He taught me how to play spin. So I took that back to Australia. In Queensland, we don't see spin that often. When we went down south, we went to Sydney and Adelaide at the time with the two wickets that spun quite appreciably as the game wore on. I got better and better playing in those conditions, and that was all down to my time in county cricket. And conversely, you flip it the other way to play in swinging seaming conditions, which is what Brisbane traditionally is. it helped me play really well at places like Old Trafford and Headingley and Durham, etc. So it worked both ways.
And then from Essex coming on to Lancashire, was that always something that you would have liked to have done, was to come up north?
Yeah, look, when I first came to the UK, I played in Halifax for the first year, Illingworth St Mary's. I started there. It was cut short for an injury I sustained, and instead of an operation, I had to go home and get rehabilitated back home, unfortunately. That was my first journey into league cricket, but then I had 2 great years at Littleborough. Cricket club up in Rochdale area, and from there I just grew a love for Lancashire. During the 90s, that's when they had their golden period of one-day cricket. They were winning every trophy going around. They had a fantastic team, and you watch them on TV. You went to Old Trafford to watch, and you just thought wouldn't it be nice one day to represent the Red Rose. And for my sins, I married a girl from Liverpool, and coming from Essex, we're actually moving closer to family. We just had a baby, and when Max came along, it made sense to be closer to family and friends for the extra help. But my time in Essex, mate, people say I've had a bad ending there. It was not acrimonious. It was horrible ending. Blah blah blah. I've still got some of my best friends in Essex from that era. And no matter what people try and say, they're so far from the truth, it's not funny. I love my time down there, and I probably played some of my best cricket ever for Essex. But moving north, it wasn't a decision that I took lightly, but also it wasn't a difficult decision when I did my interview for moving to Lancashire during a championship match in a one-day game. When I played, Murali was playing for Lancashire. I was playing for Essex. I got 2 not out of the championship in our defeat. And when I started my innings, Warren Hegg was the captain, so the wicketkeeper standing up to the stumps. I remember going down over my bat. I hear you're looking for a number 4 batsman. This was just when John Crawley had moved to Hampshire. Hampshire. I hear you're looking for a number 4 batsman for next year. He goes, but we won't be talking to you, mate, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, just, okay, no problem. I got my first 100, and I said, are you sure? He goes, well, not yet. Got to set 100 all the way through. I'm sure I'm your man. And he goes, all right, look, let's see how you go on the one day. I'll get 100 in that one as well. And he goes, right, let's have a chat. So I did my job interview out in the middle during that match, and it was always not planned, but to move back home, when I say for my wife, was probably good. And I had lots of friends, in the area up there, and further north you go, the better the people get, they say.
And obviously, your time, with Essex was successful. You had the Benson Hedges Trophy win. Maybe not at Lancashire, you didn't have the success, but obviously you had that very close, the one against the infamous game against Surrey, and all the days that were rained off in that season in beautiful Manchester. But when you part of obviously one thing that I always picked up from you all the time was this leadership and this nurturing that you seem to do with a group of players with at Lancashire. What sort of memories do you look back on in time in county cricket? Really?
County cricket, I would have loved to have won a championship. To win a championship over the course of an English summer, to play the best cricket, day in day out. That's a brutally hard task to get done. And we nearly did it a few times. I won Benson and Hedge trophies and NatWest trophies with Essex down at Lords. We just missed out. We probably should have won one with Lancashire. A couple of championship matches. I remember chasing down 484 in the last innings against Surrey, and we finished 20 short. That was heartbreaking. Moments like that you do remember, but I'll always take away fond memories. And the one thing that I wanted to bring into county cricket was, let's try and win.
Yeah.
There was always an emphasis, particularly when the division system came in when we were at Essex. The priority was to draw 7 games. We draw 7, we stay up.
Right.
And my mindset was, let's win 3.
Yeah.
Let's win 3, and if we draw more games or we win more games, we might even win the bloody thing. Who knows?
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to change, and I didn't like just seeing games just peter out to a draw. That doesn't really bring the crowds back. It doesn't really like your boat as a player either. So just tried to make sure that we always gave ourselves the best chance of winning games of cricket. Yeah. As you mentioned before, I think the weather in Manchester hurt us a few times, where we came second to Sussex, I think twice by less than 5 points.
She's nothing in the grand scheme of things, is it?
Yeah, and that people used to say, "Oh, you're just whinging about this." Then we did a stat. If you're losing 200 overs and the other team's only losing, 10 overs for the season, it just makes a huge difference. I'm sure we could have picked up 5 points or 10 points in those 200 overs for sure. But to play with some of the players I did, as I played with, one of the greats of world cricket and Graham Gooch. At Lancashire, play with Freddie Flintoff. Glenn Chappell. Carl came over and played 2 seasons. Some of the best players around. So they're the memories I'll take away, and they're the fond memories that I have of county cricket.
Kieran, I feel like it's just me fanboy here.
I've got a million questions as well, but first of all, I want to say thank you to Coach for coming on. Like, he's been, I always rank things, Jordan, and I told you a few times as well. We had Otis on. I told you, I think Otis, Stuart Law, and Winston Benjamin are probably the best coaches I've ever had in my life. But Stuart Law is not only just a good coach, he's a good person. That's something that I'm happy that I got the experience to work with him. Beautiful family as well. So, thank you, Coach, for coming on. Something that
making me blush here, mate.
There we go. That's the first time I've done that. No, something that I'm really interested in trying to figure out is Australian culture. Obviously, Australia is a very hard-nosed, outdoorsy, sporty society. What is it that you think that drives that or keeps that going from generation to generation? Because you look at the Australian cricket team, sometimes they shouldn't necessarily even be in a competition, but just the way that they're trained, like, we're not going to give up no matter which 11 goes on the field. How do you think that came about?
I think it comes from your mates inside your team. If they see standards, every team, every family, you got standards, and you want to maintain those standards. And if someone's stepping up to the plate or letting those standards slip down, we were always taught, if you're happy with it, you don't do anything, and then you suffer what comes. But if you see something that's not quite right, you tell them. You say, hey, that's not us. We don't do that. We've got to move on. We've got to keep plugging away, keep chipping away at what the task is, to get the team moving forward again. And that's not just in professional sports. That's in everyday life.
In life, yes.
If you got your best mate who is just carrying on like a bit of a pork chop at times, you just pull him aside and say, mate, no, we're not doing that. Let's pull our heads in. Let's start doing something different. Let's get better and move forward. I think that's what drove us on, and that's what still drives us on today. The cricket team now, it might be run differently and it looks different, and definitely coached differently. But the main principle of setting standards and maintaining standards, I think, is still paramount for everyone to see.
You touched earlier on, I guess, how you grew up playing the game, but more so the camaraderie in the dressing room and stuff after games. And I think for me, growing up as well, that was a huge part in how I learned the game. Do you think that's missing from today's game, where everyone just wants to jump on the phone or jump in the car and get back home and go party in all of the cases?
Yeah, I think it has changed a lot. Mate, it's probably something that's sad that you try and reintroduce. As a coach now, I've tried to reintroduce it in teams that I've played with. To sit around and have a chat. And the big misconception is everyone says, "Oh, you're going to the pub. Oh, we're going to have 1,000 drinks. We're going to get drunk and do it." No. A pub isn't a place to get drunk. A pub is the place to meet people and have a conversation.
Yeah,
that's right. Why did they invent the public house? Houses weren't big back in the day, and some people needed to get away and meet other people in the community, and that was the way to do it. The byproduct of that is having a beer. You don't have to have beer. You can have a pint of milk in the pub these days. You can drink anything. But I think that has gone. That's gone out the window because life it's so fast now. No one's willing to take a backward step to slow down. Turn your phone off. There's nothing good happening on your phone. If you needed to call your family and whatever, great. But that only takes 5-10 minutes. Get back in and enjoy learning about how to get better from people who are out there trying to they're trying to hurt you, make you not play well. So I think it's a shame that it has. I have tried to bring it in. It works for a period of time, but then other parts of life or factors of life start taking over. And I think if we can get a balance of it back into professional sport, professional cricket, I think we'll see better players in the future.
Now, obviously, Jordan touched on the playing side heavily, but I want to ask, when did you sort of think or feel like you'd want to go down the coaching road?
To be honest, I didn't really want to be going down the coaching road. I was asked by, I messaged Murali Duran. Paul, it was just after, God bless, they were in Pakistan, the terrorist shooting took place. Paul Farbrace left the Sri Lankans, and they were two years out from a World Cup. And I rang Murali and I said, "Look, mate, if there's a position, I'd like to consider it because, I know you and I'd like to learn how to go about these things." So I wasn't really in it 100% at the start. But once you get there and you get into your job, I started learning, started getting better. And then things changed, the world changed. So you had to move and change with the times. I don't think I was a good coach until probably leading into the West Indies. I'm not saying it because you're part of it, but the West Indies period of my coaching was the best 2 years I had. I really enjoyed, obviously I enjoyed living in Antigua. It wasn't a bad place to live, waking up to beautiful beaches.
I've heard of us.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. And then, the group that we had, I thought were, the test group were completely different to the white ball stuff. And, both squads, gave me immense pleasure, immense pride to do what I'm doing. And I learned so much about myself. I was isolated, so you had to tear in, otherwise you just sit back and watch things just evaporate in front of you. So the West Indies was probably where I started learning how to be that came after a few hiccups. I got sacked by Queensland. Well, you're not a coach until you get sacked anyway, and that doesn't matter what sport you're playing. I got sacked by Queensland, and that was a pretty horrible situation that arose, and that put me back in a bit of a hole as well mentally. Coming out of it, I thought, the best way to do it is get back on the horse and to put myself right back in right out of my comfort zone was to turn up in the Caribbean and be with a group of folks I had no idea that no one knew me. I didn't know them, but soon became one of the best decisions I ever made and sparked me again to create that love for coaching.
In terms of West Indies cricket in particular, No, I know. Obviously, there's lots of good relationships. Obviously, guys like Miguel Cummins actually had a long call with Pooh this afternoon. I know that you're quite close to them as well. But in terms of, I guess, the final intricacies of West Indies cricket, can you, without, I guess, going into too much detail, sort of highlight one of the main pain points you had and one of the main, I guess, positive experiences you had from that whole experience?
Well, yeah, put me on the spot here, Smack. Thanks. Look, the greatest moment for me was you're on that tour when we went to England in 2017, and we won a Test match in England for the first time in 17 years, or what it was, and that was after remember the first day-night Test match in the UK, where England batted in daylight and we batted under lights all the time.
-5.
-5, with the outfield was like a swimming pool at times as well. And oh mate, look, can we think of any more excuses? we get rissoled in that game, and I remember one of the greatest quotes from Geoffrey Boycott when he said, "This is the worst ever West Indian team that's graced these scores, and they don't look anything like a Test playing nation." And I remember Nasser Hussain saying, "Oh, they mustn't be coached very well," and all that. Oh my God, yeah. And do you remember that meeting we had the next day after that? We sat in there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, I think it was, and we didn't say much for the first 45 minutes. But then when everyone gave their version, their life story, and I'll never forget Shannon Gabriel addressing the group he was very passionate when he spoke, and it resonated with me. I thought, wow, this kid, if he wasn't playing cricket, he'd be in all sorts of trouble, with his lifestyle. But then to get from there, to get the boys together to play again the next day at Lord's, or the next game at Lord's, and to go out and absolutely trounce England in that Test match was unbelievable. And that probably gave me the greatest joy, any victory that I've been involved in. The fact Shai Hope scoring 200s in the Test match, which was great because Geoffrey Boycott never scored 200s at Headingley. And Shai Hope had done that, so Shai Hope's a better player at Headingley than Geoffrey Boycott was.
100%.
And Craig Brathwaite he almost did the same thing. He missed out
shot by 4 runs or something like that.
Yeah, 4 or 5 runs, and just the way that Jermaine Blackwood came in and finished it off. Remember, it was absolute. It was day-night match again with a red ball. It was so dark and misty all day, every day. And I remember, Jermaine coming out and hitting the second new ball off Jimmy Anderson back over mid-on for 6. Everyone said to me, "What's he doing?" I went, "He's winning the game. Let him go. He's winning." And without those little contributions, mate, it wouldn't be possible. But that's probably the highlight for me with the West Indies. The painful one, mate, was the way it ended, and it was a tough one because I wasn't quite sure what was going on. A lot of things happen behind your back, unbeknownst. There's nothing good going on behind your back. It's got to be in your face, otherwise there's no point. And it's when the president. We're in Zimbabwe for the World Cup qualifiers. We won the first game quite convincingly, and it was just the night before the second game. And he rings me up and he says, "Oh, everything all right, coach?" I went, "Yeah, everything's good, mate. Yep, perfect. Prep's going well. Yeah, prep's good. Any injuries? No. And he said, "Okay, just remember one thing. If you don't win, you're sacked." And I've gone, okay. No, I just sort of a throwaway comment, bit of a laugh and a joke. And then the next game, same conversation. I went, are you trying to motivate? And he goes, "Well, whatever it takes." I said, "It doesn't take this, mate. Doesn't take this." And that's when, Richard Pybus came back onto the board, and, we weren't sure about his position, et cetera, et cetera. And God bless, Jimmy Adams gave me a call and he said, "Oh, look, Richard's back on. He hasn't been assigned a position yet. We're not sure what's going on, but, in time it'll make sense." And I said, "Jimmy, I'll stop you right there, mate. If we lose, I get sacked. Richard takes over." that's how it's going to play out, and that's why. And I went, okay, no problem. So I had to make the choice. After that series, we qualified for the World Cup. After that series, I went back to the UK and I got a phone call from Middlesex. So we'd like to meet up, like you to come and coach Middlesex. And I just said, look, I'm really, really happy in my job. And despite what was going on behind the scenes. So I met and they made an offer that was too good to say no to be honest. And I had to go back and I told Jimmy and Johnny Grove of my decision. They weren't happy. I went back and we were on in a camp in Dubai before we went into India. And I remember calling the boys in. I'm getting emotional now. Called the boys in and just explained and said, look, I have to resign. I didn't tell them what was going on with the above. I said I've been offered another contract. I've got to think of myself and my family now because if we have a bad coach is only two losses away from being thrown on the scrap heap. I've got to think of that, and it was the hardest thing I had to do.
Yeah,
build a relationship with these kids for 2 years, lived in each other's pockets for that time as well, and just sort of, I feel like you're quitting on them. But when you look at it, what was I to do? If I had said no to Middlesex and I've gone and got the sack, I would have had nothing, and the family would have been, I would have struggled through for a couple of months. And that's never a nice place to get into. So that was a sad point, mate. It really broke my heart to talk to the boys, and I'm sure there's a few of those players who haven't forgiven me for it. And I understand that, and it's a sad situation. But I've got nothing but love and respect for all those guys I coached in the West Indies, and everywhere I go now, it's just I just got love and respect for the people I work with because I know how much they work, how hard they work, how much they want it, and that's what makes it hard to pack your bags and move on.
So obviously now you've been to quite a few places. You've been obviously out to Sri Lanka, you've been to Bangladesh, now in the USA. How did that come about?
Well, mate, I was coaching Bangladesh under 19s, and my agent came to me and said, "What about this opportunity to take the USA men's cricket team to a T20 World Cup, hosting the World Cup? Seen by 1 million people." Massive shop window, etc., etc. And I was unsure at first, and I thought, Bangladesh they're treating me really well, and 19s, are you going to progress any further from there? Maybe not. And I've still got ambitions to coach international cricket teams as well. So at that point, this was on the table. There was a couple of assistant coach roles, which looking back, it may have been just as attractive at the time, but I thought, what a great opportunity. I know that the ICC have been trying for a long time for cricket to gather pace into the US, and to be a part of the journey to help, develop cricket in this part of the world, maybe get, involved in domestic structures, etc., etc. Plus playing a World Cup, and thank goodness I pulled the right rein there, mate, to qualify for the Super 8s, which gave us automatic qualification for 2026. It's been a ride that so far has been very enjoyable, and I've loved every minute of it. Players, you make it, you really do, and they've been brilliant to be around, and they'll put their body on the line for you. They go through the mental ringer as well, and in the end, we come out, we talk about it, and we move on to the next day. So it came about very, very quickly, but it wasn't done without due diligence and understanding some of the situations you might have to deal with. But having dealt with other parts of the world, it seems like it's pretty normal wherever you go these days that going to be some issues that you've got to come up against, and if you've been there before, it makes it a bit easier to transition through it.
And the team's performances in that World Cup, obviously, as you said, getting to the Super 8s, that would have been a huge, I guess, bonus for not just the team, but I guess the US on a whole, for the general public to start understanding that, cricket is a viable option for young kids as well in the American society. So that win against Pakistan, I mean, everyone around the world sort of enjoyed that. I mean, just the nature of it, the intensity of the match, super over, etc. 1 minute you had it, next minute you lost it, next minute super over, you're back in it again. Like, what was that experience like on that day?
Roller coaster of emotions, that's for sure. I remember sitting there. Corey Anderson didn't bat, and Corey was, billed as our, big match player, etc. And I was sitting there. It was the last ball coming up. We needed 4 to get to the super over, 6 to win it. And Nitesh Kumar on strike. I remember sitting next to Corey, and I tapped him on the thigh and I said, "Sorry, mate, I've messed this up. We should have got you in earlier, blah, blah, blah." And he said, no. The ball went for 4, and then all of a sudden, right, how are we going to set up the super over? Because you never think you're going to get to a super over. No one think, but you've got an idea in the back of your head who you're going to, walk out there with. But until it happens, it wasn't panic stations, but you had to think quickly, and there was so many different little groups that you had to go and speak to. And the number one thing was the selection of the ball that we were going to use. Now, it's changed over time. Usually, I think it used to happen, the umpires just selected the ball and that was it. But now you can take a brand new ball, you can take an old ball, you can take a semi-new, or you can use the ball that's just been used in the super over.
Right. All right, okay.
And our boys were going, "Oh, yeah, what about a new one?" We're going, whoa. No.
No.
Going to use
no chance.
I've just used.
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh, can we do that?" And Rod Tucker was the fourth umpire with the bag of balls in his hand, or the box of balls, and he said, "Boys, I listened to you, coach. Use the ball that Pakistan just used."
Yeah.
We did that. It had a bit of reverse swing in it for some unknown reason. So we used that one, and what the super over created was two absolute heroes for US cricket in Aaron Jones. He followed up in 36 not out, then he got 14 not out in super over. Following on, his 94 not out the first game. So it created a bit of a cult hero in himself, and he's now recognised more widely around the US. And the Iceman Surab Netravolkar in the super over, and Ali Khan came to us and he said, "I want to bowl a super over." And we're going, "Oh, mate, I understand. And Ali Khan can get really emotional, and he doesn't quite go his way. He gets more aggressive, which can be a good thing. But I think in a super over, you just need a real calm head, high skill, someone who can replicate skill under pressure, and who isn't going to, feel the heat if he gets hit for 6. So the captain came to me and he said, "I think Surab's had a good day." And I went, "That's a good call. Surab, come here." And at the end of it, I just said, "Mate, that's a brilliant over. Well bowled. You are now one of the best bowlers in the world." And he looked at me and he went, "What?" I went, "Well, you are. You've just executed 6 balls under pressure in a super over of a World Cup. It's, a team that's ranked 10, 13 places. You're one of the best bowlers in the world." And he goes, "Oh, I just thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for trusting me." And it was just such an emotional, a lovely time. And what that did create was that we moved to New York straight after that. And the New Yorkers, they're pretty brash. They don't offer too much, when it comes to something they're not used to. And I remember I was playing golf. My wife was here, so we're playing golf on Staten Island, at a little golf club, and we were playing with Corey Anderson. And at the start, go to the starters gate here. We're teeing off at this time. Small talk, blah blah blah. And he said, "What brings you to the States?" And we said, "Oh, cricket. Oh, yeah, the T20 World Cup's going on." And so who you're supporting, who you're watching. And my wife goes, "Look, that's the head coach. This is one of their best players." And they went, "No way." So then they started the conversation about cricket. And he's, New Yorkers, they're not quiet. Hey, dude, this guy is the head coach of USA Cricket. This guy is a great player, man. by the end, we walked in, we teed off, we were nobodies. By the time we'd finished, we were getting people coming up, shaking our hands, patting us on the back, buying us beer in the clubhouse and talking about cricket. So next question. So that's what that achieved. It achieved people actually sitting up and taking notice, and wow, it was absolutely awesome to be a part of it. And then we nearly go and beat India. My God, with the icing on the cake, we had to beat Pakistan and India. Great teams find a way to win in difficult conditions, and which India did. But my word, we nearly pulled that one out of the bag as well.
So what do you think would be, I guess, next steps for these players in terms of getting more high quality match time under their belts? Because as you said, you've created guys like Aaron Jones, the Saurabh Netravalkars, you've got the Ali Khans. These guys are going to get franchise T20 gigs now. And obviously they'll continue to grow as they go, etc. But the other guys and I guess the domestic infrastructure, how do you sort of replicate, I guess, the best case one I could think of is someone like Afghanistan that's grown incredibly quickly over the past, let's say, 10 years.
Yeah, it's probably easier. Well, I say it's easier in Afghanistan, down to the size of the country. It's huge. To have, imagine having a team from every state, 52.
Yeah.
Whatever, that's going to take a lot of funding. I think there's, in my opinion, whilst we're still trying to create the ideal situation for domestic cricket here, don't forget you've got the Major League Cricket, which is going on now. You've got minor league cricket, which takes place at certain times as well, and that's quite well run from my understanding. I haven't seen it, but from my understanding, it's quite well run, and that's a local franchise type deal. A bit like Bangladesh have done it in a great way as well. They don't play first class cricket under the BCB. They do, but the teams are all franchised out. So money coming in from ICC doesn't all go down to the domestic structure. The big business companies in Bangladesh, they run the cricket teams, and obviously you get the BCB coaching staffs in there to run the cricket, and administrators to administer the cricket. But a lot of that ICC funding doesn't get down to there. It's all done by the big businesses. So the money that comes in, because they're not on the same, pay packet as what, India, Australia, England are. So the money that comes in from the ICC goes directly to the cricket teams under the BCB banner. So all the international teams, the men, the women, the boys, the girls, etc., the underage stuff. So that's a model we can actually look at. So the funding that comes in from the ICC is one entity, and that looks after international cricket. And then the franchises, they look after the domestic cricket and hopefully get, some people around, whether it be coaches, whether it be administrators to run the minor leagues. And from there, you've got little tournaments popping up everywhere. You've got the Houston Premier League or the Dallas Premier League, kicking off at certain times. They're played over a 5-day stretch, I think, or a 4-day stretch. So there is that sort of cricket that is taken off. The other way to do it is like the West Indies, the great West Indies did in the 80s, 70s and 80s, where when they're out of season from their own domestic stuff, they go and play overseas.
Yeah.
And even now, I'm not saying that our USA players should go and play in the Sheffield Shield or go and play in county cricket, but there's going to be these franchise tournaments that pop up, as you said before, Smack, that these kids are going to get involved in. And a player that's been around for a bit now is Andres Gauss. He's played in ILT20. He's played in the T10 in Abu Dhabi. He's playing in the MLC. He looks like he's going to get a job in Canada as well. And we can't stop them doing that because that's how they're going to learn how to play the game. We've got to find a compromise, and that compromise has got to be. There's going to be a bit of give and take. And with the players who aren't fortunate enough to be involved in those, we need to find how to keep developing that talent within, and whether that means, the coaches moving around to, different parts of the states to conduct camps, or we try and set up a high performance centre in Dallas. Dallas is the best cricket facilities here.
Right.
We've got a high performance centre here, and we bring coaches in for players in, and we just do cricket for a week, and then they can all go back. Then bring more players in, coaches, etc. Maybe that's another way we can get around it. But there's food for thought. The bottom line is it's going to take a lot of financial backing.
Yeah.
Get it all up and running. And at the moment, USA Cricket, we get what we get from the ICC, and it's not enough to run a domestic tournament.
Funding perspective.
Yeah, it's difficult to get a structure that's going to be sustainable. So we need to find other ways to do that, and whether we are able to send players away to different parts of the world to play club cricket, or if these franchise opportunities come up, as long as they're outside of our cricket as well, the main USA cricket, because we got some important cricket coming up. We got the League Two CWC qualifiers, so we've got to go away and play 50 over cricket and gain points to hopefully get that through enough to be in line to qualify for a 50 over World Cup. And man, if we can play some really good cricket in that, you look at the next 3 years, we got 26 you'd have T20 World Cup, 27 you'd have 50 over World Cup, and 28 you'd have the Olympics. So
yeah,
exciting times.
Yeah,
I think that, obviously, as you mentioned, funding there, you look at what's happening in the US with all these massive hedge funds buying or investing into sports leagues and sports teams. I think that's definitely an angle that Cricket USA should look at. But another angle I'm thinking of as well is, two angles if I'm going to pinpoint it. Obviously, the US is close to the Caribbean, so I think Cricket West Indies, US cricket used to come under the auspices of Cricket West Indies, and I think that's something that could be engaged in a bit more in terms of playing some matches here and there. It doesn't necessarily have to be set timings or whatever the case is. Like, you've got a window here, you guys have got a window, let's try and get together for some matches. Again, you look at the distance between, I guess, Australia and the west coast of the USA. That's not too long as well, and that's a direct flight. So I think that there's, viable options. But another option as well that might be more cost effective is, Cricket USA highlighting their best, let's say, 30, 40 players, and then looking outside and looking at the best players in the world and understanding, okay, we need to be better at X, whether it be fast bowling, spin bowling, this type of batter, so that our bowlers can improve, and bringing those guys in and incorporating them into basically ultimately like a county setup where you've got 2 overseas players playing per team or 3, whatever the case is, and just running a small group of high intensive matches, a la Kerry Packer, if you being the Australian in the scenario. But I think that there are ways and means to, go about it without breaking the bank. It's just for them to be, very strategic and understanding what they want to improve on. I know people would have given the pitches in New York a lot of stick, but anyone that knows cricket knew that you can't put a ground together, in 3 months, untested pitches and expect fucking magic to follow the year. It doesn't work like that in the cricket in the ecosystem. You look at what happened in Dallas, for example, and the pitches were so much better, and that's obviously because those pitches have set for a while. Everyone knew, and the US players in particular were very aware of those conditions and knew how to exploit them because they played there that much as well. So I think that, places like Florida were underutilized, but again, being in the hurricane time of the year probably was for a good reason. So, there are lots of interesting things happening in the US. I think it's definitely a huge market in the way that it can revolutionize cricket in terms of the way that they do sport. Sport is, once they invest into something, they go all in the money that they put into it, the money that they're able to generate. And I guess the training techniques and stuff that may, come about knowing how Americans do things as well is quite interesting for cricket.
Yeah, look, all that needs to be encapsulated, and we can put it together, but in a way, as you said, that isn't going to be breaking the bank every 5 minutes. We've got to be smart and allocate the right funds to the right projects. We have identified areas where we need to improve, and we just can't do that by going out and picking 5 people and say, right, you're the next cabs off the rank, go, good luck. There's got to be a strategy behind it, and there's got to be time and effort put into that area. And we have got players that have been that hold US passports who haven't been part of this recent success, and some of them have the skill sets that we're looking for. So we need to find a way to incorporate them in. Once again, there's going to have to be some give and take from both sides, from the player and from US, to make sure that we're able to get the best squad possible together to make a real impact in not only the 50 over competitions coming up now, but in the 2026 World Cup, the T20 World Cup. It'll be nice. It's in India and Sri Lanka. You're going to need pace there. You can't bowl medium pace in India. And we're going to have to find some mystery spin. So look, the identifying is one thing. It's just how we go about creating those opportunities to get the players up to a certain standard. And you know what? It's not going to be an easy job, but no job's worth taking on if it's easy. You've got to have that difficulty there to keep driving you forward, keep your thought processes, twirling over, and this one might take a little bit of out of the box thinking.
Yeah, I think just last thing from me, Jordan. I think I've gone on my fanboy tangent here, but just last thing from me. This is something that Jordan and I actually touch on, and I'm quite strong on this as well. Developing nations need to be given a lot more attention from, I guess, the ICC. And something that I've always been big on is, for example, a team going to the West Indies. The West Indies have got a busy summer coming up now to the end of the year. You've got South Africa going straight after the England series. I think going or coming, there should be some sort of assignment in the USA where they play whatever your next assignment is, because that will obviously help South Africa cricket to move forward. You've got Bangladesh going there as well. So going or coming to the Caribbean, they can play some one-days and some T20 matches. So you guys obviously are not just playing World Cup qualifying level type cricket, but you've shown that the guys have ability to perform at the highest level. So continue to give them the exposure to the highest ranked team so that they can continue to grow. Because, I mean, you look at Kenya in the 2003 World Cup getting all the way to the semi-finals, and now Kenya is nowhere to be found. You look at Namibia and what they've done over the past couple of years. You don't want these teams to push up and then regress. You want to continue to improve world cricket, because I think cricket can definitely be bigger than football if we tap into some of these other markets as well. So that's something that I'd love to see to benefit developing nations, and ICC really play a strong role in that.
Yeah, well, interesting. After the Super 8 game against South Africa, we lost the game, but I think if we had there was a couple of overs that went for too many when we bowled, but if we hadn't have lost Harmeet Singh at the time we did, we might have got even closer. Andre Scouse got 80-odd not out. So after that game, Rob Walter came up to me and he said, mate, would you be interested in playing us in more cricket? I went, yes, please.
Yes, please.
Where do you want to do it? I said, mate, I don't care. We'll do it on the moon if we can. It doesn't matter. We just need to play. And so that's what this success has brought. Sri Lanka are keen to talk about cricket, and that'd be great for us in T20s going to Sri Lanka, because the games will be played in Sri Lanka and India in 2026. So we've also had offers from India, maybe not number one teams, but A teams, or an A team from a state association. So there is all this now starting to come up, which is fantastic. So I think the support will be there. ICC, you're right. ICC, I would like to think that they really want the cricket in the US to be successful. Yeah. They have helped out to a certain extent. I think they might need to start, readdressing and maybe helping us out a little bit more. I mentioned that I rang Matthew Mott straight away when I heard England were going to the Caribbean in October. I said, do you want to stop in and do your warm-up, your camp with us, here in Dallas, and then travel into, and they say, oh, there's so much cricket, we're not going to do that, it's going to be hard. But you're going to go there and practice for a week.
Yeah.
Why don't you come here and play 2 games,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Play us, and, do it here, give us a bit of exposure, give you guys a chance. Dallas isn't a bad place to come for the English, the Barmy Army love it. There's plenty of golf courses, so the players will be happy. There's lots to do. The barbecue's pretty good. So, those conversations have started to take place, and it's up to us now to follow through these initial conversations and come up with actual, structured plans to give us some more cricket at a higher level, which will benefit our boys no end.
Jordan, back over to you.
Well, there's a couple of questions I wanted to ask you. One in relation to leadership, because I remember, whether I watched an interview or read something, you always said that you don't believe that leadership comes naturally. It's something that it has to be worked on. And obviously, wherever you've had successes and you've been highly successful, obviously at Queensland and from a coaching side of things as well. Like, how have you sort of taken that bit of leadership? Is it something you've studied, or is it something that you felt that, because you spent a lot of time listening in your early career? You mentioned there, obviously earlier, about sharing a change with Alan Borden. Is it something you've always tried to develop?
Yeah, I wouldn't have studied it, mate. I didn't study at school, so I wasn't going to study it. You do. I think initially you fall into leadership. I got into it at a young age. But I think people see something in you that you don't. And you can pick it up now as you get older, you get a bit wiser. You can pick it up now with the players who have got a real good sense of the number one thing about leadership is you've got to think of everybody else before you think of yourself, which you might need to, turn up early to practice or stay late from practice, because everyone else is more important than you, and you've got to show that. Because otherwise, if you just, stand out the front and say, the captain, this is how we're doing it, no one. You've got to give everything to the team first, and then you can take from the team. I made a point when I was captain. I always, the old adage between batters and bowlers, this smack that batters set up victories, bowlers get you victories. So bowlers will have to run through a brick wall. If they're bowling on a wicket on a 40-degree day and you're throwing the ball saying, mate, I need extra effort, if you haven't got a really solid relationship with them, they're going to tell you, no chance, not today, mate. Yeah. So I made a point of looking after the bowlers as much as I could. They're becoming really close with them. If they ask for something, we'll get that done. Batters didn't matter. Batters always looked after themselves anyway. Our batters were pretty good. They didn't need too much looking after. But the bowlers, just made sure that we're all together. I'll buy them dinner, take them for a drink, whatever it might be. But on the game day, I knew that if I had, a tough situation or partnership needed breaking, I could throw the ball to Andy Bickle and say, right, we need you to bowl 2 bounces and over and get a wicket here for us. And he'd run in and try his heart out and do that. Same with Kastrovic, same with Nofke, same with Joe Dawes, same with Adam Dale. Well, this goes on. But leadership's all about, it's not all about you. Yes, you're the one who makes the decisions. Yes, you're the one who, is interviewed more. You're the one who cops all the flack when things don't go well. But it's not about you. It's about the team. And I learned that watching some guys do it. Sometimes you learn from people doing it badly.
Right.
So you learn not what to do.
Yeah.
And you watch, people doing it really well, and you learn, okay, you listen to them, you ask them questions about how do I get the best out of this player. And, we were lucky in my time at Queensland. We had a guy called Phil Jauncey, a sports psychologist, and he got it. He was from Canada. He knew nothing about cricket, which made it even better because he didn't tell you how to play the game. He just came in and tell you how to be better around your players and your teammates.
Yeah.
And he got it. He delivered. He said, right, you need to work out what makes your players tick. You need to work out what type of player they are, how you can speak to them, what messages you can send to them, et cetera, et cetera. And once you've got a handle on the character of the player or the person, and the way you can deliver the message. If you weren't sure, pick up the phone. Phil, I'm not sure. How should I do this?
Oh, yeah.
He'd never tell you the answer. He'd ask you questions, and then you'd come up with the answer yourself, and he'd go, right, there you go and try that. And it was great having him around, just to even chew the fat about, life.
Yeah.
Because at times, as the captain too, no one talks to you. You're not getting invited out, go and playing golf. You're not getting invited to go out for dinner with a group of blokes, because they don't want to be seen with the school teacher, the principal. So it can be a bit lonely, and sometimes you've got to push yourself away just to give yourself a bit of space. And that comes. That's learning leadership. That's how I did it.
Yeah.
Some other people are completely different.
Yeah.
But you need to be all together, and there are times when you need to be separate just to give yourself that breathing space and to mentally reset and go again. But mate, leadership, you do learn it. This time, and I think the best leaders ask more questions. The number one thing on a cricket team, there's 10 more people before you.
Yeah.
Look after, and if you're not doing that, your team's not going too well.
No. Well, I think it's such a good point that you made there about the bowlers and that side of things, especially with either being a batter yourself. You probably would think that, but the way you explained there was was really interested. The other question I wanted to ask you, and I hope you don't mind me asking this, is obviously like you mentioned about one of the big things you wanted to know about from a Test cricket perspective was whether whether he was actually good enough, and whether he was in the UK. There was obviously bits and rumours in terms of obviously from the press in the UK about you potentially being eligible to play for England. Was that ever something that was considered, and would you have done that if it ever came about?
No.
Mate, my father would have disowned me for a start.
That's the biggest crime an Australian could do, isn't it?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, my God. It was brought about. Getting a British passport was great for me at the time because my wife was British, and it took a while for our son to get his British passport as well, which made it incredibly difficult when you'd go from Australia back to the UK, and we could go through the normal channels of passport channels and through in 2 minutes. Max had to queue up for an hour to get through, and it didn't make any sense. But anyway. There was a time Jeff Miller did tap me on the shoulder. He was the chairman of selectors, I think, for England. He tapped me on the shoulder one day and said, "Would you?" And I went, "No."
Right.
I can't, mate. I couldn't do it. I'd already played for Australia. I was 35 at the time, so I was coming to the end.
Yeah.
People still think you can do what you did when you're 28, when you're 36 and 38. You can't. No. Well, I just thought, it was the 2005 Ashes, so it would have been an absolutely monumental series to be involved in.
True.
Selected someone like Kevin Peterson may not have been, and that would have been a travesty of justice.
Yeah.
But you know what? No, I couldn't have done it.
No,
it wasn't even tempting. To be honest, I never dreamt of doing it. I did speak to my old man. I said, "There's rumours going around that I could be in line." He goes, "Well, you won't be coming home here, will you?" Well, okay, thanks, Dad. But no, mate.
It's always something I wanted to ask because sometimes I couldn't. I always thought when I was reading it, I couldn't have ever imagined, as much as I would love to have seen it myself. Obviously, I couldn't imagine that happening. But I've asked the question, so
I would have played against some of them. They're good mates too, and
I was going to say, yeah.
I don't think I would have been able to keep a straight face. Wouldn't have performed very well because I've been too busy laughing. I couldn't have done it, mate.
No. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for joining. Me and Kieran tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure. Like as mentioned at the very start of the podcast, we were someone who I looked up to a lot playing cricket. I'll never forget the first time I made my first 11 debut, and within about an hour of me being selected, you were one of the first people to message me to wish me good luck. And those things go a long way. And you mentioned that at the start, obviously, about people who influence you. And I've watched a lot of you, and I can't thank you enough for the influences you had on me playing cricket and stuff. So to actually have a chat with you like this tonight has been a real privilege, and I can't thank you enough.
Well, thanks, mate. Appreciate it, mate. And say good day to your dad for me too, will you?
Absolutely, will do.
Cheers, Coach. I don't think I need to go into anything. Like, you've always been a great man. Great laugh. You know what I like about you?
Oh, fuck all.
Absolutely nothing.
Well, the oldies are goodies, mate. Boys, it's been a pleasure. You've broken up my day nicely, so I thank you for that. And I'll chat soon, eh?
Cheers.
Chat soon. Cheers.
Thank you for joining us on the PowettPlay Podcast, hosted by Kieran, Powell and Jordan Shannon. We hope you enjoyed this immersive dive into the world of cricket and business, exploring the unique experiences and perspectives of players past and present, alongside those invaluable insights into intriguing business themes that transcend beyond the boundaries of sporting heroics. Be sure to set your reminders on your Alexa or Google Home device, or we won't tell anyone if you still use those paper calendar things from a bygone era. Join us next time for more inspiring dialogue with scintillating minds on the PowettPlay Podcast.